an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required.
Welcome, YouTube Shorts chat. Hey, I was struggling getting the short stream up, but here it is. We are in the middle of the Trump press conference on Venezuela. Trump's already spoken. Sorry I didn't get to show you any of that, but again, I was struggling to get YouTube to connect to my OBS. But we are streaming on Twitch. We are streaming on YouTube in the horizontal format, and we're streaming in the shorts format as well, and I finally got that up. But yeah, this is General what is his name again? Dan Cain, aka Raisin Cain. That's what Trump likes to call him. Apparently, you got Marco Rubio to his left. You got Donald Trump to his right. Now, I want you to kind of keep an eye on our president, right? Because I don't know if I guess he was up late the night before. So this time he's got a bit of an excuse, but just watch the man's eyes. Watch the man's eyes, right? He's given his speech. Hegseth's given his speech, right? Let's see if the general here, the chairman, as Trump, I guess of the military operation, Dan Cain. Let's see if he can keep Trump's attention.
Every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists, and we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched.
Yeah, everybody's favorite guys.
We waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years.
So he's talking about military lessons, I'm sure, right? But in terms of lessons of the wisdom of a particular military conflict, I don't think that we've learned much of anything. And I'm not just talking about the generals and the the presidents and the military of everyone. I'm talking about the American people, right? The American people learned in Vietnam that a full-on takeover of a nation and an attempt to impose a government on them that they don't want, using United States Armed Services personnel as the enforcers of that was not something that they wanted. They didn't want the they didn't want the loss of lives, right, which went up above 50,000, and they also didn't want the war crimes that were done in the name of the United States, right? They saw massacres like My Lai, and were disgusted by it. And the last president to oversee the Vietnam War was Richard Nixon, who went down in the flames of the Watergate scandal. So after the Vietnam War, right, which was at first going to be to support the South Vietnamese government, it turns out the United States didn't like the puppet that they selected and had him done away with, replaced him. It was to stop communism ostensibly, and then the mission just crept and crept and crept until the United States was bombing Laos, which is to the to the west of Vietnam, and Cambodia to kind of the southwest, right? If you've heard of a guy named Pol Pot, this is where he came from. You've heard of the Khmer Rouge and a genocide that did happen in Cambodia. that happened because of the military intervention of the United States trying to cut off a supply line to the Vietnamese freedom fighters, right? So we've had a long time to learn this lesson. Now, the American people, to their credit, they somewhat learned the lesson after Vietnam, right? The military-industrial complex, as exemplified by former CIA agent and president of future president of the United States, George H.W. Bush, they called it Vietnam Syndrome. What was the syndrome? The syndrome is that Americans didn't want their soldiers sent into a war, right? Americans weren't buying this domino theory. We got to stop the spread of communism or whatever. They didn't want more war, right? So George H.W. starts a war with Iraq. Now, you might have heard of this before. A guy named Saddam Hussein invades a country, a little tiny country on the coast of the Persian Gulf called Kuwait, in order to liberate them. But you might not have heard the backstory, right? Where did Iraq get its weapons? Turns out it's the United States that gave Iraq its weapons. Why did we give them their weapons? Well, because there was another country called Iran that we had enacted a coup against. Iran didn't like the coup, and they had a revolution, and the United States did not like the government that took over after that revolution. So we armed Saddam Hussein. Right? Not only did we arm Saddam Hussein, but it turns out that Bush officials may have given Saddam Hussein the idea that he had a free pass to attack Kuwait. He was our asset. He was our ally, right? He was our guy in Iraq. And when he bounced this idea off of American diplomats, they didn't bat an eyelash, right? So Iraq goes into Kuwait. On the premise that Kuwait is slant drilling them. The United States comes to Kuwait's defense, stations soldiers in Saudi Arabia, and eventually invades Kuwait, and has a pretty clean operation, right? It wasn't like the Vietnam War where they're there for years and years and years. It was a mission. The mission was to liberate Kuwait. They liberated Kuwait, did a few war crimes in the process, and then got the fuck out of there. But somebody didn't forget the United States had been in what he regarded as the Holy Lands. That man's name was Osama bin Laden. And is it going to break your brains a little bit if I tell you that Osama bin Laden was also a CIA asset? Why? Because the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in the prior to the Gulf War, and was essentially armed by the United States. Mujahideen or freedom fighters were under the direction of Osama bin Laden. He was a CIA asset. He was used by the USA, and they basically got him into this I don't know what you want to call it, like paramilitary game or terrorism game or whatever, which is essentially what he was doing, shooting down Soviet helicopters over Afghanistan, right? So he is able to raise a group called Al-Qaeda off of the idea that the United States has befouled the holy lands of Saudi Arabia, right? This is where Mecca is, and it's to have United States troops stationed there was considered an abomination to Osama bin Laden and his followers, right? He does something called 9/11 that you might have heard of. A mass casualty event in New York, Washington, D.C., and Pennsylvania involving hijacked planes. And then this is the precursor for the Iraq War, right? The second Gulf War, you could call it, or as George W. Bush called it, finishing up daddy's work, right? His dad went into Kuwait, but didn't finish off Saddam Hussein. W thought this was a mistake, so he was going to do it right. So he does a war that is, again, a little bit more like Vietnam, right? HW's war is clean and it's quick, and there's no mission creep, right? It's not, well, next we're going to attack Jordan or anything like that, right? It's done and dusted, except the fact that it causes blowback. That blowback is then used by the people for the new American century, basically the neocons, to justify a war in Iraq. Now, Iraq didn't have anything to do with 9/11. Iraq didn't have anything to do with bin Laden. In fact, there's probably a little bad blood between the two sets of forces, but that doesn't matter because we were able to sell the idea that Saddam Hussein was a madman, that he's developing nukes and weapons of mass destruction, and that we gotta go in there and that he had something to do with 9/11, right? So this war is more like Vietnam. It's more like the same thing over again. The situation that the American people in the 70s, the boomers, told themselves they wouldn't get themselves into again. They wouldn't ever let this shit happen again. They kicked out Nixon, the Vietnam War ended, and they were like, no more war, right? And then HW says, oh, how about just a little war? And they're like, okay, that's all right. We're okay with a little bit of war, a little bit of kicking Saddam Hussein's butt, a little bit of feeling, strong, watching war porn, on CNN, etc. Right? And then when, the blowback from stationing troops in Saudi Arabia inevitably causes a terrorist attack on U.S. soil, they are willing to sign off on a war with Iraq, and the media was right there along this. Now, look, we're talking about politics. We're talking about Donald Trump, and there's a tendency, right? There's a tendency to see this stuff as team sports. Either you're Team Trump or you're, Team Democrat. And, if you're Team Trump, you're against the media, you're against the neocons. And there is a little complicity, a lot of complicity actually, between the neocons and the standard Democratic establishment, right? And certainly between the media too. The media loves this; they eat this up. The Democrats love this; they eat this up, right? Trump supposedly didn't love this, and he wasn't going to eat it up because he was anti-neocon. He was anti-George W. Bush. He was anti-Iraq war. That's a big part of probably why he won in 2016. Hillary Clinton had supported the Iraq war, right? A lot of the Democrats had. Some of them had been against the Gulf War, the 90s version of the Iraq war with Bush's dad, and they had lost their congressional seats because all of America was like rallying around the flag. Vote out the damn Democrats that won't support us, fighting Saddam Hussein. So Hillary Clinton and a lot of the Democrats were pro-Iraq war. But what you're seeing with George W. Bush embracing the agenda held by the establishment Democrats and held by the media is the betrayal of MAGA. Any of you MAGAs out there that thought that this guy was going to be different, right? That thought that this guy was going to fight the neocons, drain the swamp, and whatever else, in your fantasies, you thought that he was going to do. You thought he was going to clean things up. Turns out, he didn't drain the swamp. He is the swamp. And now he's just doing neocon, and you can tell that's Marco Rubio. That's in his administration as Secretary of State. This man is a neocon. Donald Trump invited the neocons back in after having defeated them. And so I don't want to hear any based about this shit, because this is a lesson that America should have learned a long time ago, to reject this kind of shit. Whether it is a short engagement as is, kind of portended by the fact that, the mission was to take out Maduro and then prosecute him. And that's been done. And they've said that maybe there'll be no other waves. There'll be no other attacks. But we've also heard from Donald Trump that the United States is going to run things. That to me sounds a lot like Iraq. That to me sounds like a lot of reasons that maybe some of you Trump supporters out there voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. I don't think that was a good bet, but I can understand if you made it, based on Hillary Clinton's support for war in the military-industrial complex. I guess I can understand it a little bit. What I want to tell you, in no uncertain terms today, is that you've been betrayed. You've been sold out. And all MAGA is, all right, is neoconservatism with a shitty red hat on. That's all it took. That's all it took to fool you into thinking that these guys were different. They're not different, all right? Jeb Bush would do this. Kamala Harris would do this. Donald Trump would do this. And for you, lefties out there that watch my channel, because I'm generally, against this guy, and I'm against what he's doing here too, right? I want you to understand that, our shit stinks too, all right? Democrats betray us constantly. Let me roll it back for you in case you forgot from the 2024 campaign, because I didn't. Let me play for, oh my God. And let me play for you what Kamala Harris said at the Democrat in here in Shorts chat. We got We got Democrat supporters here in Shorts Chat, and I want to tell both of you that you've been betrayed. And I want to tell both of you that we got to get better politicians that don't do this shit. Because here we go. Look, in case you forgot,
America, we must also be steadfast in advancing our security and values abroad. As Vice President, I have confronted threats to our security, negotiated with foreign leaders, strengthened our alliances, and engaged with our brave troops overseas.
It's always got to be about the troops, even if you're sending them to their fucking deaths, right? Even if you're giving them like fucking injuries that are going to last their whole lifetime, that are going to fuck up the rest of their life, right? And even if you're not taking care of them when they come home, right? We gotta use the troops as a fig leaf. If you're against this war, if you're against this breach of international law, right? If you're against this gross hypocrisy and avarice, then I guess you're against our troops too.
As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
That's all I needed to hear, right? I still voted for her just because I thought she was, the lesser of two evils, right? But in terms of being excited about the Kamala Harris campaign and thinking that it might be a major break from the Biden foreign policy, that's when I knew we were cooked. All right, let's get back to Trump.
Many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise, it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together.
GTO Music, you say, thank you, President Trump. Are you also going to thank President Bush? Look, if you're about taking dictators out of power, you should thank President Bush too. He took out Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was a bad man, and Iraqis celebrated when he was toppled. You should be thanking President. But you gonna thank President Bush? Are you happy with the American involvement in Iraq? Are you happy about the United States creating ISIS through that involvement? You think Iraq is in a good place right now? You gotta learn from history, guys. You gotta fucking learn. I know history's like boring, right? Everybody thinks history, it's boring, dry shit. It's not. It's war and peace. It's life and death. It's fucking important, okay? And it's actually not boring. It's exciting, maybe a little too exciting. In fact, I think I'm a little too excited about this right now, but I really want you to lock in on this and start to learn from history and start to understand that whether it's a Republican standing up there, right, saying that we took out the bad man, we took out the dictator, or it's a Democrat saying that we did it, this is something they both agree on. All right? This is where neocons and neolibs shake hands. And Donald Trump has just sold you all out. If you're in MAGA and you believe that this guy was some kind of candidate of peace or something like that, you believed he was some kind of break from the Rubios and the Bushes and all the rest of the shitheads, right? This is where Donald Trump unambiguously, you could say he sold you out in Iran too, if we're being real about it, but this is where that illusion needs to dissipate. And you need to wake up and join us in reality, because I'm disappointed with Democrats too, and the fact that they endorse this shit. And you're going to see a bunch of them out on, TV on the cable news networks, right, which also endorse this, right? Many of them traditionally have been owned by the same companies that run the military-industrial complex. This is great for them. This is also great for their ratings, right? So you hate the media, you hate the Democrats, but you're okay with Trump when he's doing the same thing? Wake up. Stop getting conned.
In time and place to layer effects for a single purpose, to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives.
Eric MM, this is a great, let me read this out. And let me let you know the shitheads that you're in bed with if you're cheering this on, right? Iraq is in a great place right now. They are thriving with democracy. Oh, yeah. If Obama didn't pull out the troops in 2011, this motherfucker wants forever wars. Eric 4404. This guy just argued for forever wars. You literally want 1984. Is that what you're telling me? Right? Is that what you're telling me? Are you licking the fucking cock of the military-industrial complex as we speak? Like, goddamn, I hope you've got a job at Lockheed Martin or something like that. At least you got, some reason to root for that side. But that is fucking madness. You want the United States to permanently occupy Iraq and Afghanistan? You didn't learn anything from history? Or at least that history in this, century. I'm not gonna, hold you to like understanding like Korea and Vietnam and everything in the 20th century, but at least understand the mistakes that have been made in the 20th century. At least understand that 9/11 came from blowback caused by George Bush's dad, H.W. Bush, right? The Gulf War, as they called it, or Iraq War 1.0. You could see it as the prequel to George W. Bush's Iraq War, right? Put U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia that allowed Osama bin Laden to gather his hijackers to blow up 2 towers in New York, hit the Pentagon, and then I guess one of the planes crashed in Pennsylvania, right? Let's roll. Anybody remember? Nobody remembers. Who am I kidding? But anyway, look, I want you to remember some history at least, some history at least, and recognize that the war never changes. Any of you Fallout fans out there? Anyway.
For those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived,
didn't Obama surge the troops in 2011? Mike Gonzalez, you might be right, but I'm not here to stand Obama. All right. I'm not here to stand the Democrats. I don't know when you got here, but I'm not a fan of Democratic administrations or Republican administrations, because I think this war bullshit is something that they agree on, and it's something they agree with the mainstream media on. If you're against the mainstream media, if you're against the establishment Dems, why are you not against this shithead and his regime when he's saying the exact same shit, when he's got a neocon as his head of the State Department? That's Marco Rubio, guys. That's Marco Rubio. That's not Rand Paul, all right? Wake the fuck up, conservatives. Come on.
Traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day.
But yeah, here's something Obama didn't do. I don't remember if he surged troops in 2011 or not. I do remember that he made a promise to close down Guantanamo Bay, and he failed to deliver. Okay, so I'm not offering the establishment Democrats as a solution for the problems that Donald Trump is causing all of us right now, problems that we will be dealing with for the rest of our lives, all right? Blowback that will no likely, be the cause of future conflicts, all right? I think the Democratic Party needs a change in leadership, and I think the Republican Party needs a change in leadership. And I think that these fucking ghouls in the self-licking ice cream cone that is the military-industrial complex need to be washed out of public life, permanently blacklisted as traitors. Traitors to the country and traitors to humanity. All right? These are the black marketeers, chat, of World War III. And I'm sick of them being in charge. Whether I vote for a Democrat or whether I vote for a Republican, I always get these shitheads. And I always get these wars.
Minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel, so as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military...
Mick Stevens is trying to distract us with trans people? Excuse me?
Sat
and tampons?
Ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action.
That might have worked in 2024. That's not going to work in 2025.
Last night, the
2026, least of all.
Enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver.
No one cares what a transvestite thinks. Arrowhead, we're not talking about JD Vance. Come on, keep up.
Through ocean,
keep up.
Low cloud ceilings, but when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night,
what do I think of Kennedy, the Fox News host?
The president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission.
Claudia, I think what you're trying to say is I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And if you were paying attention, you'd feel the same, okay?
Said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed.
Oh, are you talking about Kennedy, the steroid guy that Trump put as the head of HHS? Which Kennedy are you? There's a lot of Kennedys in this country.
And those words were transmitted to the entire...
The general is so lame. Hey, I'll have you know this is General Raisin Cane. He's got a cool nickname. How can he be lame?
Entire joint force.
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out who the chatter is talking about.
Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total,
David Menendez says, Iraqi here, we agree with the intervention. You may not like Bush, but please stop speaking from us in a matter of fact that you don't understand. Oh, I'm sorry. I misread that, David Menendez. You actually said Venezuelan here, and you may not like Trump. But it's the same fucking thing. Do you not get it? It's the same fucking thing. There were Iraqis saying the same thing as you're saying, assuming you really are a Venezuelan. All right, you know, citation needed, right? But there were Iraqis saying the same fucking thing, and they were glad to get rid of Saddam Hussein too. Maduro's a bad guy. Nobody's disputing that. Saddam Hussein is a bad guy. Nobody disputed that. But what Iraq got was 1 million civilians killed. Are you going to speak up for your country and say that you're willing to sacrifice 1 million innocent Venezuelans for Trump's bullshit war? Do you not understand how this works? Have you learned nothing from history? This is not Bush. It's the same thing as Bush. It's the same fucking thing. He just said we're going to take over the country. And on camera, I'm sure he did at some point, right? I remember on camera, I'm sure he did at some point, right? I remember Biden not knowing where he was. I remember Biden, talking about finally defeating Medicare. I remember Biden not being able to, tell his head from his ass. I don't remember him falling asleep standing up at a press conference.
As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement.
There is no war in Bosse Singh, says Photo Guy Australia.
And began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones.
Thank you, Dwight, for reminding me it's Bossing Say.
As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component is, was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision.
Okay, so looking at the, we had a question about deaths in Iraq, civilian deaths. I'm seeing anything from 151,000 violent deaths from the Iraqi Family Health Survey, 601,000 from the Lancet survey out of 654 excess deaths. PLOS Medicine Survey says
It was so peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
406,000 deaths in Iraq as a direct or indirect result of the war, including more than 60% of deaths directly attributable to violence, right? So, but that being said, chat, there's tens of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis that would be alive today if y'all, or maybe your parents, if I'm being real, we're not fooled by Colin Powell's bullshit holding up the vial of supposed weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein had. They looked for those, chat. They were never there. But it was never really about that. This was all set into motion by the people for a new American century. They had a whole plan. Iraq and Afghanistan were like the beginning of this plan. They would have liked to go into like Iran and North Korea and a bunch of other countries too, right? But this was just the pretext, right? This was just the pretext. That and 9/11, which Saddam Hussein had fuck all to do with.
And discipline towards their objective, and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the president said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces...
21 minutes left on the butterfly goal. It looks like we're at 6 out of 10. If we get 4 more super chats of the teal variety, I will put a butterfly in my hair.
...could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure...
By the way, I'd like to thank all the haters in chat. The more you chat, the stronger I get. You chatting in YouTube chat is YouTube doesn't know the difference between that and an engaged viewer, right? So because of your hate, YouTube is sending me more viewers, and I thank you. I thank you for this.
That we can
keep it coming.
Get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force.
Rach, if you want to go in, we've got 2 streams. One is horizontal, the other one's vertical. If you can find the horizontal thing, I bet the chat will be a lot nicer there.
At the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely...
Okay, so there's Trump. Just, I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to focus in on him, right? But the guy is like closing his eyes. I think that he's probably got like a headpiece in. You'll see from time to time he opens his eyes again. I think that's somebody in his earpiece being like, Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, you're falling asleep again, Mr. President, Mr. President.
Proud today of our joint force and filled with
woke him up.
gratitude to represent them here today.
It's almost more interesting than what Raising Cane is saying.
Simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals.
Also, mods and shorts chat, I just made things easier for you. Let me know if you need more help.
And the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Why in WBRW? What does that mean? You will never be right wing? True.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us.
And he's also Scarface, right? Look at those charges. Look at those charges against him, right? We got drug trafficking, right? And not fentanyl, mind you, cocaine. That's what he's being charged with. He's being charged with cocaine trafficking and machine gun related crimes. Chat, does Trump think that Maduro is Scarface? Anybody in chat think Maduro is Scarface? These are like this is what you charge Scarface with, right?
Saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration,
going to sleep again.
The second Trump administration, none of those 3 recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice.
Again, he is a more successful version of Donald Trump, right? What is he talking about? What is Marco Rubio talking about when he says he's not the legitimate president? He's talking about the fact that Maduro held an election, lost, and stayed in power, right? So yeah, no, he's right about that, but this is what Trump tried to do. Maduro did Jan 6, but unlike Bolsonaro and Trump, he actually succeeded against it. Or he actually succeeded in it.
With a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers.
Yes, and he agreed to them, and you wanted to fucking do this bullshit war anyway. Maduro was ready to hand over the whole country, chat. I don't know if people understand this. I don't know if people understand this, right? Maduro offered the oil, offered to kick China out, offered Trump probably a blowjob. I don't know. I mean, you know, it's usually he doesn't know that Trump likes to give blowjobs to a guy named Bubba, not receive them. But he's got Laura Loomer for that. Maybe, I don't know. Chat. That's what Milo says.
So peaceful up here, but now there are freaking communists.
Too much right wing gossip. I might have to turn our stream alerts off, chat, because the chuds in chat.
Peaceful up here, but now there are
and look.
Invading radicals.
I'm trying to throw you a bone, right wingers in YouTube shorts, just in case you're not getting it, right? I'm not maintaining that Donald Trump here is doing something that Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton would not be doing, right? He's doing the same shit. And I'm against it, whether it's a Democrat in office doing it or whether it is a Republican or even fucking Donald Trump doing it, right? The thing is, it feels like there's a lot less consistency from the right side of the aisle. So some of y'all are endorsing neocon. Chat, that's Marco Rubio. All right, just may I remind you, right wingers in shorts chat. This is Marco Rubio. He's Secretary of State. Why is he Secretary of State? Because Donald Trump nominated him, and the Republican Congress, the Republican Senate, confirmed him. Right? That's not Rand Paul. All right, that's Marco Rubio. That's a neocon. I thought you guys were against this shit.
And chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And
To play around. I don't know what more Maduro could have offered essentially, he offered the situation that they've got right now. His vice president would take over. He would resign as president, and America would control the oil, and China and every other rival would get kicked out. Right? He was willing to sell the farm.
Result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following: you have a guy. Like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy...
Waffle, that's Marco Rubio. You said this isn't neocon type activity. This is exactly neocon activity, right? This is what the mainstream media, neocons, and establishment Democrats all agree on. Maduro's a bad guy, and the United States needs to go in and do something about it. And while we're at it, we might as well help ourselves to that oil. We might as well enrich our businesses. This is something that Trump agrees with Kamala and Biden on, right? This is something you're going to hear praised by the mainstream media. They love this shit. They love it when there's a war, chat. It's good for ratings, and it's also good for probably their ownership, if I'm being real, right? If you really want to oppose that shit, if you really want to see America first or whatever the fuck that means, I don't even know what that means to you anymore, right? You should be against this. And when you see Marco Rubio up there as the Secretary of State, you should know that Trump has sold you out. He sold you out to neocons, right? And you defending him just makes you double suckers.
Who decides he's going to invite Iran?
You suck Trump and you suck Rubio. Yeah.
To his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration.
Wait. I'm sorry. Hold people hostage and trade them? That may be what's going to go on with Maduro, right? Chat, we're just on the, this is just after Trump has pardoned a convicted former president of Honduras who bragged about putting cocaine up the gringo's nose. When he says the gringos, he means you, chat. Right? This is a president who engaged in drug trafficking to the United States and was convicted of it, and that Trump pardoned. So what do you think is going to happen now? Right? I wouldn't be surprised if some Maduro supporter showed up at Mar-a-Lago saying, Mr. Trump, we're willing to put several $billion into your shitcoin. We're willing to invest in your bullshit crypto. All we need from you is to let Maduro go. I don't know, Chad. I don't know. Maybe Maduro will get the pardon too. All he's got to say is make America great again. That's all. George Santos, chat. You remember George Santos? The world record holder for the most lies told by a politician. The guy that said he claimed to be Jewish, and then after it was proven that he wasn't Jewish, said no, I just meant like Jewish. I mean, I'm similar. I'm similar to a Jew. I'm not actually a Jew, but I'm Jewish, right? I'm in that direction, right? Trump pardoned the guy. Trump pardoned Eric Adams, the utterly disgraced former mayor of New York, right?
Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it.
But now there
He
are
actions
freaking
it.
communist
I can tell you, I've watched this
radicals.
process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action.
But now there
Like,
are
I don't
freaking
understand yet how
communist
they haven't
invading
figured this out.
radicals.
And now, if you don't know, now you know.
Okay, I'm muting alerts because it's just overwhelming. Thank you for all the subscriptions. Thank you for the hate, which makes me stronger. But I gotta mute it, right? Because that every time you're hearing that guy talk about communists invading radicals, that's another angel getting its wings. That's another person subscribing to me. Thank you for helping this happen. But I gotta put it on mute. Otherwise, we're gonna be hearing communists invading radicals all night. So that's but yeah, just let me know in chat if there's any donos or anything that I need to call out, because when I'm muting the alerts, I'm going to mute that too necessarily.
Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something.
Yeah, Rach, some people are glad that Maduro is gone. Especially if they're more wealthy and in support of the so-called opposition, they feel that. But no, he is a dictator. He's not he lost an election and he stayed anyway. He did what Trump tried to do, basically, only more successfully. But we must remember it was only 23 years ago. When people were saying the same thing about Iraq, where Iraqis around the world were celebrating the toppling of Saddam Hussein. And it was great because, right, the United States went into Iraq. They completed the objective. Mission accomplished, right? Mission accomplished. Anybody remember Mission Accomplished? George W. Bush gave a speech in front on an aircraft carrier with a big banner that said mission accomplished, and then we had the insurgency, and then we had Fallujah, and then we had destabilization, and then after the United States got out of Iraq, there was ISIS, right? That wasn't a good war. That was a huge waste of money. That was a huge waste of life, both Iraqi and American, and that made the whole world less safe, not more safe, even though Saddam Hussein is a bad man. It turns out that you can take a bad man out of power and actually make the situation worse. And that's the lesson that the United States should have learned during the Iraq War. But then again, there's lots of lessons we should have learned, right? Vietnam, Korea, the list goes on and on. Hell, the Spanish-American War, if you're Mark Twain.
He means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it. There's a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities.
He's the president of peace. Why is there a neocon standing in front of him as his secretary of state if he's the president of the peace?
Find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy, but instead he wanted to play big boy. And so now, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think the message here should be for the world. Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not generally wants to get along with everybody.
The president doesn't look for ways to distract from the Epstein files. No, sure, absolutely. Or the failing economy.
We'll talk and meet with anybody, but don't play games. Don't play.
You're literally playing a fucking game with us, asshole. And we've seen this shit before.
Games with this president's in office because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that, I guess that lesson.
What Maduro did was a crime. Do you mean staying in power after he was defeated in an election? Are you saying that Trump didn't win the 2020 election?
Was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message for Cuba? Mr. President.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Oh shit, chat. We got 5 minutes left of the butterfly goal. If you want to see this butterfly go in my hair, you got 5 minutes left. Teal super chats and above. If we get 4 more of them, we'll get the butterfly today. Otherwise, I will complete the stream with no butterfly. So if you want to see the butterfly, you got 5 minutes to make it happen through super chats.
The U.S. is going to run Venezuela. So who's in power right now?
Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run
with a group.
We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. and we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor
It's
flow.
a big thing about he's all about flow, right? You know, he told Gavin Newsom during the fire that his only problem was that there was a what do you call it where you turn the wheel to get the water to flow? There was a wheel in Northern California that apparently Gavin Newsom couldn't figure out how to turn on, and that was what was causing LA to burn, right? Was that the water wasn't flowing, and now he's like, the oil wasn't flowing, we got to get it flowing in the right direction. Yeah, it's funny how the oil doesn't flow when you put a country under sanctions, right? When you threaten anyone who buys oil from them, right? It's funny how the oil doesn't flow when you put the kind of sanctions that just completely decimate a country and they're unable to even keep up their infrastructure, right? It's funny how that works. Remember, Donald Trump is the one that put those sanctions on Venezuela, the sanctions that caused the mass wave of immigration that he then complained about and blamed on Biden. That wasn't Biden who put sanctions on Venezuela, although I think he did keep the sanctions. That was Donald Trump. That was Donald Trump causing a problem that he would then campaign on, right? And if you heard what I said about the CIA, causing problems for the United States in, with bin Laden in Cambodia and Laos, like you understand that that's the most American thing that Donald Trump's ever done, right? Caused the massive wave of migration and then campaigned against it when he ran for office again. Sarah with the butterfly, that is 7 butterflies. We still need 3 more butterflies, chat.
It's actually a minor flow for what they have, but we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people.
Little Marco looking great.
People of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure that.
But I just wanted to point this out, right? He rejected Marco Rubio when he ran against him. He made fun of Jeb Bush for being part of the Bush family, and he shat on the neocons that brought us into the war with Iraq. He ran against Iraq, if you don't remember, in 2016, and very convenient because Hillary Clinton was a supporter of the Iraq war. And now he has got his opponent from 2016 is standing right next to him.
People that were forced out of Venezuela.
He let the neocons in, chat. MAGA, you've been betrayed. He lied to you.
Venezuela by this thug are also taken care of.
Mr. President, does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. So we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it, but we're going to make sure that country is run properly.
167? I must have missed something, Rave and Magenta.
We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of...
Oh, here it is, maybe.
Dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment is less important, but...
All right. I can't put your super chat up, but I'll count it towards the butterfly goal nonetheless. Mindspeak says, so little Marco said, we offer an indictment to go away and everything would be okay for it. Yeah, offered to... I'm guessing to Maduro, you're saying? But little Marco said... but we get him because Maduro... yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Maduro was ready to give them everything they wanted and more. And they wanted a war, chat. They wanted a war. They wanted a distraction from Trump's failing economy, from his idiotic tariffs that are making the country even more unaffordable, and from the Epstein files, which are not going away. No matter what Trump does.
Lost a lot, and we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to.
I found it, Magenta. Thank you.
Right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. They stole our oil. We built that whole industry.
They stole our oil. Okay, now I'm trying to figure this out. They stole our oil, right? How does that work? It's our oil, but it just happened to be underneath Venezuelan territory? Is that what happened? They stole our oil? No, here's what he means, right? The United States was exploiting countries that it diplomatically dominated, such as Venezuela. And American industry was extracting wealth that belongs to the Venezuelan people for their own profit, for their own good, right? Because of the hegemonic power of the United States backing them, right? So that's what, when he's saying they took our oil, right? It's not your oil, Kate, if it's under Venezuela. How stupid are you?
And they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misread. Kate Friedlander did nothing wrong. Kate Friedlander did nothing wrong. I'm so sorry. I totally misread your tweet. They did not steal our oil, is what Kate Friedlander said. I apologize. I'm sorry. I called you stupid when it was other people in chat that were being stupid.
I did not.
We made a deal, and the Venezuelan people are celebrating. Ryan Brezer, do I need to get the Iraq war footage out for you? Do we need to break into that? Right. See, see if I can find this.
Do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're late, but we did something about it. Yeah, please.
President, will you explain the exact mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
Yes, it's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
That would run Venezuela.
Well, it's largely going to be for a period of time. The people that are standing right behind me, we're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead. I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world. And it required leadership. Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there, a lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for Maduro. So you can look at, and others, we have fantastic people, including people in the military. So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life, and also reimbursement for people in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
Everyone's focus fell on the statue of Saddam.
Will you bring this statue down?
The Americans brought in a tank recovery vehicle. One over-exuberant Marine couldn't resist a bit of flag-waving patriotism first. The stars and stripes were taken down and replaced by the Iraqi flag. Then the moment of history. Saddam's regime could finally be said to be at an end.
There it goes!
There it goes! The bad man is gone. Everything is going to be good now. I'm sure there's not going to be hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis killed by the U.S. occupation. I'm sure that Iraq is going to exit this occupation in a great place and not be taken over almost by ISIS, right? Not spawn more terrorism. So just like there's Venezuelans that are celebrating right now because, yeah, the bad man is gone. And yeah, Maduro's, his he lost an election and he stayed. He basically did what Trump tried to do, but he was more successful. I think that's really what Trump hates about Maduro is that he's actually a more successful version of himself. His January 6th was a success. He stayed in power, unlike Trump, who tried to do the same thing but failed, or Bolsonaro, Trump's friend in Brazil, who is now, I believe, going to stand trial for his own January 6th, right? Because Brazil is a more functional democracy, sad to say, than the United States of America. There we go. So if you don't understand, slapping somebody with a shoe is a grave insult in Iraqi culture. Funny enough, in the culture of the country that I live in as well. But you can see how much people were celebrating and how little ultimately they had to celebrate. How the worst was yet to come. The worst violence, the worst suffering, and the and ultimately unsuccessful attempt to replace the Iraqi government with something better, right? You try to replace it with something better, and you get ISIS. That's the lesson from history that I really want people to learn. And I want people to understand that there's not a difference between the opinion on Maduro of Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, or the mainstream media. They all agree that this action is based, right? They all wanted to do this shit.
Back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship going?
I understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, you said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that.
He has cocaine mills. He has factories.
Outside. Oh, sorry. You're talking about Brazil there. I was about to disagree with you, but I'm not a Brazilian. So hippie Craig,
where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Explain that. I'm a fan of Brazil. I think they did the right thing. Hippie Craig, do you have a problem with Brazil? I'm saying Brazil did a better job at defending its democracy than the United States.
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in it.
Sure. We called members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days.
So again, this is a requirement of a war action, even one that's done in an emergency, right, that you're supposed to consult. At the very least, some of the top officials in Congress, they did, I think, consult the Republicans, but their explanation here is that, like, we couldn't tell Congress because they would have leaked.
So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice. And the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
90% of the crimes happen in liberal cities, says Hippie Craig. Well, Hippie Craig, the United States has voting patterns very similar, where cities tend to vote for the Liberal Party and rural areas tend to vote for the Conservative Party. However, I believe the crime that was done by Bolsonaro and his and his thugs was done in a liberal city. Would you blame the politicians, the mayor, officials of that city for Bolsonaro, a right-wing politician, attempting a fucking coup?
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there.
But the funny thing is that anybody in a position of power in Congress would have had no incentive to leak, right? You got to understand the establishment, whether it be Republican, Democrat, or the mainstream media, is in favor of this shit.
But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
Mr. President, you were one of the only people to watch this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering, if Maduro pushed back or resisted, killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. The safe place is all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. People We're
and I just wonder, when Republicans, Democrats alike have had enough of Donald Trump's bullshit and he tries to retreat into his safe place, I wonder if he'll be able to close the door in time, right? I wonder if he'll be able to keep the torches and pitchforks out of his, away from himself and Melania. I wonder how that's going to go.
Do we get him by surprise?
No, chat, let's be real. You know what's going to take this guy out? Congestive heart failure, right? He's got those cankles. He's got those bruises on his hands. This guy's not long for the world. If anything, this will be a situation with JD Vance, holed up in some bunker somewhere while riots erupt outside.
I was sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of.
What about Epstein? Yeah, nobody's going to ask that, unfortunately.
There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today, but he was trying to get to his safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to.
Brian Bresgardner, I want you to understand, nobody's defending Maduro, okay? Nobody's defending Maduro. That's not what this is about, right? This is about the global hegemon abducting another country's leader.
That door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it. Go ahead, finish.
Where is Maduro going to be in the time being right now? Do you know his exact whereabouts?
Well, eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York? Do you know?
That's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators.
Yo, a mixed track record. That is the nicest way you could say that. That is what he's saying is that the United States consistently fucks around and finds out and creates something called blowback, which is when we intervene in another country and it causes more problems down the road. What do I mean? I mean 9/11, right? 9/11 happened because the United States empowered a guy named Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan in order to shoot down Soviet helicopters, right? When the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, the United States supported Osama bin Laden, a CIA asset, and the Mujahideen that he was leading, the freedom fighters, the so-called freedom fighters, right? We taught this guy to fight. And then the United States goes into another country, Iraq. Here's another example of blowback, right? The United States armed Saddam Hussein to go after Iran, right? And then when they stationed troops in Saudi Arabia, that's what allows bin Laden to recruit the hijackers that take down the World Trade Center, right? These are all a series of dominoes that if you go back far enough, the United States knocked down the first domino, right? Not just the United States, but really, the military industrial complex and the, the clandestine, agencies like the CIA, right? But yeah, let's look around a little bit more, okay? So yeah, I said that Saddam Hussein was our guy, was the CIA's guy, was the United States guy, was Donald Rumsfeld's guy in Iraq to fight Iran. Why did they want to fight Iran? Because Iran had done a revolution to overthrow a puppet dictator called the Shah that we installed, right? All around. Like, this is like, you're just seeing blowback, like all of these issues, right? Around, Iraq, Afghanistan, etc., right? They all start with the action by the United States and in a lot of cases by the CIA. And look, if you support that deep state shit, I can't really help you. But I really thought you MAGAs were against the deep state. I really thought you wanted to drain the swamp, right? I really thought you were against the neocons, but chat, that's Marco Rubio standing up next to him. Marco Rubio is like fucking head neocon, right? He's one of the big ones.
Without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards. Did that weigh on your decision?
Well, that's when we had different presidents, but with me, that's not true. With me, we've had a perfect track record of winning. We win a lot, and we win. If you look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, you look at the.
You were bragging about, well, at least in the case of Soleimani, you were bragging about international crimes. You were bragging about acts of war, illegal acts of war undertaken under your first administration.
Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was incredible. Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace.
Midnight Hammer was him helping out Israel, right? And really not doing much at all. Iran's nuclear program wasn't meaningfully slowed down. The Fordow facility was not compromised heavily enough for us to say that anything was destroyed there. It was a failure of a mission, but it was literally the United States getting involved in a Israeli war against Iran, right? And this is more bullshit. This is more neocon bullshit. You know, this is stuff that would have happened under Trump, under Kamala, under Biden, under Obama, under Clinton, under any of these assholes, right? This is the entire U.S. political establishment. And, you know, maybe a few years ago you could have said, except for Trump, right? Because Trump was against Jeb Bush, against, you know, the neocons that he was running against in 2016. And he said that he was going to be a different kind of president. He was going to be a president of peace. He was going to hold America first as his priority. And he wasn't going to involve us in foreign wars. That was a lie, chat. That was a lie. He didn't want to end the neocons. He didn't want to fight the neocons. He didn't want to stop the neocons. He wanted to take over the neocons. And that's what he's done. And he's doing neocon shit. Because guess what? Guess what? He's a fucking neocon. Come on. You've been fooled.
In the Middle East because of that. If we weren't successful with Midnight Hammer, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. So with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories.
And when he says peace in the Middle East, you're talking about a hegemonic Israel. And if you think that's going to equate to long-term peace, I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida.
No losses, yeah.
President, can you, how long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want Venezuelan people to hold elections?
So I'd like to do it quick.
Sharon, how much bullshit have you swallowed? Didn't Obama give permission to Iran to make refining uranium, and Trump came into power? Sharon, Obama stopped the Iranian nuclear program, all right? He put inspectors in Iran so they couldn't. So here's the deal. You've got uranium that you use for a nuclear power plant, all right? Then you can take that uranium and you can highly enrich it to produce a nuclear weapon, okay? So Obama made a deal where all of Iran's uranium would be watched over by the UN and would not be processed into, you know, the refined form that can make a nuclear weapon, right? Obama had that problem solved. Trump undid it.
But it takes a period of time. You know, we're rebuilding.
Look, if I drank out of a water fountain one day, okay, and I got, I don't know, some kind of infection, right? E. coli, right? I got E. coli, I get Giardia. Yeah, Giardia is a better one, right? Parasite living in my gut, making me, you know, shit explosive diarrhea all over the place. I spend a week shitting explosive diarrhea all over my bathroom, right? I have to get that shit steamed cleaned afterwards, right? And I'm finally better. And, you know, I take a pill to get rid of the parasite and I finally feel better. You know, I would think twice about drinking out of that water fountain again, right? If I got infected from it. I think some of you conservatives in chat have been drinking out of infected water fountains and you haven't learned the lesson that that's how you get infected. That's how you get bullshit coming out of your mouth, like what Sharon was spouting, right? This is just, let me just repeat the Trump talking points. That's his narrative, right? Isn't that what happened? No, that was the lie that he told you. That's the lie that you swallowed. And now you're spewing fucking diarrhea all over Shorts chat. Will you please clean your ass? Will you please fucking clean your ass?
We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. The infrastructure is rotted. It's actually very dangerous. It's you know, blow up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing.
Thank you, Donald Trump. Oil is explosive. Did you know that, chat? Did you know that it's explosive? Did you know petrol can blow up? I didn't fucking know that. Thank you for teaching me something, Donald J. Trump.
Out of the ground can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago. And we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country. Yeah.
Hippie Craig says we would have $2 gas if Biden hadn't ended the pipeline. Hippie Craig, that's an unproven thesis that you're offering there. All right. That's woulda, coulda, shoulda. All right. What I can tell you for sure is that if we didn't elect Trump in 2024, your coffee wouldn't be twice the fucking price, assuming you're in the United States of America, right? Your grocery bill wouldn't have gone up. Anything that you might fucking potentially save in terms of gas prices with Trump, believe me, you're going to be paying tariffs for, asshole.
You saying that Secretary Rubio and
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and the drugs?
And Russia, Russia when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Are you saying that, Mr. President, are you saying that?
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
That you're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time. It was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice.
Why does anyone believe this fucking record liar? Like, he said this shit to the U.S. He said you're gonna win so hard, you're gonna be tired of winning. What did we win, chat? We won a fucking out of control pandemic and an incompetent leader who made it worse. We won hundreds of thousands of people who died under COVID who would be alive today if we had a slightly competent president in the office at that time, right? We won a threat to our democracy on the level of the German beer hall push enacted by Adolf Hitler. All right. And now we're winning pariah status. I mean, we already kind of had it with Kamala and Biden. Let's admit it, right? Their support of Israel was poison to the credibility of the United States, right? So it wasn't good to begin with, but any remnant of credibility that the United States might have had on the world stage got shot to hell in the abduction of a foreign leader, right? And he did it in order to instill fear in everyone out there. Because if you go back far enough, chat, in Trump's history, you're going to see that he is connected to the mafia. Honestly, anybody that was in the business that he was in at the time of real estate in New York at the time would have to be connected to the mob just to operate, right? But he learned from the mob and he learned from Morricone. And what this is fucking gangster diplomacy, where we're not trying to win through love. We're trying to win through fear. We're trying to impose fear on everybody out there. And that works until the rest of the world decides to gang up and take you out, right? And look, it's just tick, tick, tick. United States, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time before the United States goes from global hegemon to global pariah and eventually to a fractured, balkanized remnant of itself. It will break up. It will lose power. It will lose status. It will be at the whim of other forces instead of being the one subjecting other countries to its whims, right? That's the future. That's what the tea leaves say.
You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. You know, if you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country. And they destroyed it.
Dems do import votes. 360 Blow Brown. Let me tell you about how Donald Trump imported votes, all right? He placed sanctions on Venezuela, which immiserated the country, made it miserable, made it unlivable, right? And then people immigrated in a pretty large wave from Venezuela into the United States, and he offered them temporary protected status, all right? Trump caused the wave of Venezuelan immigration. Now, he does want to kick those people out now, so I guess he's not exactly, importing votes, but this is a thing that conservatives have done for a long time. Look at the Cuba Libres in Florida, right? And that the way that their, citizenship was fast-tracked, right? And that's why Republicans win Florida right now, due to Republicans importing. If you want to look at it like that, I mean, if you want to talk about importing votes, then there you have it.
Remember, I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly. When you look at the border from 2020, what they did, what Joe Biden administration did.
What you did, motherfucker. What you did. Destabilizing Venezuela vastly contributed to that. And in general, if you want to look at immigration, it's something that tracks with destabilization, right? You don't just leave your country on a whim. You leave your country because shit's fucked up and you have to leave your country. And both the Republican and Democratic Party has been great at creating chaos in other countries that creates exactly that situation. And then you get people coming into the country with no pathway to citizenship, no ability to make their presence in that country legal. So what do? They work for corporations. They work for companies. They do meat packing. They do agricultural work. They do the bottom rung of work that American citizens are not willing to do. And they get paid substandard wages and they get exploited in all kinds of ways. They get, wage theft and they're subject to, there's no way you're going to start a union in that situation to try to, defend your rights as a worker, right? So the corporations benefit from not just the waves of immigration caused by bad U.S. foreign policy, but also the refusal to allow any sort of pathway towards immigration that leaves these people in a desperate situation where they're forced to do the kind of work that nobody wants to do. If you know what goes on in a slaughterhouse, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Nobody wants to do that work. They do that work for pennies. They do that work for peanuts. Right. And this is a great arrangement because the companies never get in trouble for it. If the workers get deported, that's their problem. Right. In fact, sometimes the companies will actually call ICE to be like, hey, we got a bunch of illegal workers here. You'd think that at one point that the government would turn around and say, hey, you know what? You got illegal workers there because you hired them. Right. Let's do some. Like, maybe you should go to jail. Maybe you should be deported. That never fucking happens, chat. That never fucking happens at all. And it's a huge policy failure that is, contributed to by the racism of the Republicans and the cowardice of Democrats.
To our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we would be exactly where Venezuela was in terms. I used to say, if they win, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids. And that's what would have happened.
If you're looking for steroids, I think you should ask your director of, Health and Human Services. I think that RFK could probably get you some steroids.
Thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
Team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed.
Do I know anything about Venezuela? I know more than Trump does.
By Maduro.
Like, he literally doesn't care. It's just a convenient way to distract from Epstein, a way to enrich his donors, a way to keep ghouls like Marco Rubio. You see that guy right there? That's Marco Rubio. That's a neocon. That's the kind of shithead, deep state motherfucker that Donald Trump promised to keep out of government. And Donald Trump nominated him for Secretary of State. Right? That's Trump inviting the deep state and the neocons back in and doing now, yes, neocon policy. Now, I'd love to tell you that the Democrats are completely against this shit, but I would be lying. I'd love to tell you that the mainstream media pushes back on that this shit, but I would be lying. This is something that Trump, the Democratic establishment, and the mainstream media all agree on, and the fucking CIA and whatever other, deep state, portions of the U.S. government as well, right? This is something that all fucking, fist bump on. This is something that they dap up on, right? They all agree on this shit, and now Donald Trump agrees too, because he was never on your side to begin with. He's a con man. He's been one since he was fucking born with a silver spoon in his mouth, all right? And he conned you. He successfully tricked you. He got you to do his dirty work for him, and there he is. This is what happens when you empower a born liar like Donald Trump.
And right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said...
Fine Apocalypse says Colombians and Venezuelans largely support this. Citation needed, 1. And 2, so did Iraqis after Saddam Hussein was toppled. Finpocalypse. Did you see that earlier? So you're saying the same shit the people were saying after the Iraq War, except substitute Venezuelans for Iraqis, right? How did that turn out? How did that turn out? I bet there were the Vietnamese people that were really happy when the United States took over from France and to support the fucking puppet government in South Vietnam. All right, and we know there were Cubans that were really happy when Kennedy and the CIA agreed to conduct the Bay of Pigs, an attempted counter-revolution against Fidel Castro in Cuba, because this motherfucker's one of them. Marco Rubio is a Cuba Libre.
We'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but
I want the Democrats back in power. It depends on what Democrats, right? You got to show me some Democrats that aren't going to do the same fucking thing. I would, if I could, I would have a third party in power, a party that actually takes a principled stand against imperialism. On this particular matter, I don't trust the Democrats. I certainly don't trust the establishment Democrats. Whether, new people can rise up who will actually change the policies, the platforms of the Democratic Party, that remains to be seen, right? What we're seeing now is a lot of people play like an outside game until they get inside and then just completely sell us out, right? But we would hope that at some point you'd have a real opposition party that stands against these kind of wars, right? The United States has been dealing with this imperialist war bullshit since at least fucking the Spanish-American War. Mark Twain wrote about that. I'll try, if we have time, Chad, I'll read you some of what Mark Twain wrote about this. But yeah, the United States has been trying to shake off this imperial curse since we separated from our mother country, the Empire of Great Britain.
She really doesn't have a choice.
And especially when after, World War II, when they basically took over the British Empire.
We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of...
Kate Freelander says, unfortunately, the third party will probably never win what is known as a true democracy. I do agree with you that the deck is massively stacked against a third party in the United States, Kate Friedlander, and I don't think it's by accident.
Ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest millions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela.
Yeah, Rach, might the Democrats be preferable on certain issues? Absolutely. Are they preferable on this one? Unfortunately not. If you're talking about the establishment Dems, they're going to do the same fucking shit. You give Kamala Harris a chance to use the most lethal military, she will do, she might not do it as sloppy or as haphazard or in a way that makes us a global pariah. She might have a better pretext. She might not say that it's about oil like Trump did, right? But she wants to take Maduro out too, right? Will we be better off with anybody but Trump? Probably. Not anybody but Trump, but yeah, most other plausible politicians probably. But on this particular issue, this is one that's really tricky because the Democrats that are in power are so shitty on this, right? They've learned all the wrong lessons. Look, we'd hope that the Democrats would have learned from Vietnam. We'd hope that the Democrats would have learned, from the interference in Afghanistan with bin Laden and the blowback that happened because of the placement of U.S. troops in Iraq in the 90s. We hope that they would have learned something from the so-called war on terror. But everything that I see shows me that they haven't. They haven't learned a goddamn thing. Right?
And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela that are now in the United States, and frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back, yeah.
What have you done to protect Americans in the country, and were any of the detained Americans?
Well, right now they're very protected because nobody's going to mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that you better not.
Just in case anybody's not clear about this, Kamala Harris had a chance to win the election, all right, and she lost it on the night of the Democratic National Convention. She lost that chance, right? When she put her money in with, we're going to have the most lethal army, she lost it. When she said there's no separation between me and Biden, when Biden was funding a genocide in Gaza, she lost that election. Do you know how much she lost that election by? 1.5. 1.5% of the votes. In other words, chat, this is a weird one, right? Stick with me if you will, right? Trump's win over Kamala Harris, which he did win, obviously the electoral vote and the popular vote as well, right? But his margin of victory was lower than Hillary Clinton, who lost the 2016 election, but won the popular vote. Hillary Clinton's margin of victory over Trump in the popular vote, which is not what we decide presidents on, right? Hence Hillary not being president and Trump being president, right? But she won, she beat Trump in the popular vote by more votes than Kamala lost by. So it was a lot closer than anybody gives it credit for. And yeah, just a little bit, just like with Hillary Clinton, right? Something like Hillary Clinton showing up to Wisconsin instead of taking it for granted and saying, these are blue collar voters. Of course they'll vote for the Democrat, right? That you just fucking signed your death warrant, Hillary. I mean, hopefully not your. I mean, we'll see what Trump does if he goes after Hillary. Probably not her death warrant, but her political death warrant, right? She sealed her fate. She sealed her fate in that, and Kamala did too. And we gotta have better Democrats, right? I would love to have better Democrats who I knew would not do this shit. And I would hope that, there'd be a little bit more restraint from the Democratic Party. But in terms of the overall concession to the military-industrial complex, right, which Republican Dwight Eisenhower warned us about in his speech, upon leaving office. I hope someday to be able to say, yes, the Democrats are better than the Republicans, but on this particular issue, they're not. Neither is the media. There's a lot of oh no, fuck me. Oh my God, chat. You know what that is? That is the call of my class. I actually have to go to class now.
It's one of them.
All right, so it's online, so I'm going to try to give you a little... We're going to try to finish this out. God damn it, we're supposed to cover Asmongold and... There's Asmongold and Destiny are on my fucking thumbnail, and I didn't cover that. There's at least one bonus item. I think it's Alex Jones versus Candace Owens that I was supposed to... Wow, Jimmy Bean, that's fucking crazy. You love this neocon shit then. You think the Democrats are an 8 or a 9 and the GOP... Wait a minute, I'm sorry, Jimmy Bean, maybe I'm misreading you. Are you saying scale of 1 to 10 as far as what? For shitty policy. Thank you. God damn. This is the second chatter that I've befouled. I've accidentally disagreed with, even though I probably agree with you. More or less. But it's not enough, Jimmy. If you really want to win, the people out there that are willing to vote for you, you can't be that close to as bad as the Republicans, right? You got to heighten the contradictions, not lessen them. And ever since Ronald Reagan ambled onto the stage of history, the Democrats have been doing that exact thing. The Democrats have been trying to be like 1 or 2 points better, to the left of the Republican Party, right? They're scared of their own shadow. They are no longer the party of FDR. They are the party of liberal losers. They are the party of, you know, Bill and Hillary Clinton. And that's a sad thing. That's a sad thing because it used to be slightly better. I also think that we got to learn, speaking of learning from history, you got to learn that if you want to do something to stop the rich from getting richer and gaining more control over all of us, you actually got to do something a little more hardcore than the New Deal. All right. So just keep that one in the memory tank. If I need to, I know, I need to go to class. So I'm going to have to, yeah, that sucks. I need to just start streaming earlier. That's the only thing that's going to make this better. Is if I start streaming. Chat, would you, one in chat, if you'd be, look, I started at let's see, 10 p.m. Pacific time. That's 1 a.m. Eastern time. If I instead started at, I don't know, 7 Pacific time or 10 p.m. Eastern time, one in chat if you'd be here for that. One in chat if you'd be here for that. I'm gonna have to change my thumbnail. We're gonna have to do Destiny and yeah. Okay, so here's the new deal, chat. I'm gonna give you a new deal too. All right. Tomorrow we're doing Destiny versus Asmongold. One in chat if you know who I'm talking about. You all know who Asmongold is. I'm sure that YouTube Shorts chat knows who. You know Asmongold, the based guy. Yeah, we're gonna watch him tomorrow. All right, so be here for that. Be here for that. We're gonna watch Asmongold versus Destiny, and I'm gonna have to give you Alex Jones versus Candace Owens tomorrow too. Because okay, so a lot of people would appreciate me, maybe. I gotta know. Okay, so just know that is my intention to try to stream earlier. Will I actually make that time of 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern? Probably not, but I'm going to try, and I'm gonna be here earlier than I was. I was kind of late actually. I started at 10:30 tonight, so I want to start earlier because otherwise we're just not gonna have enough time. Destiny's still on YouTube. True. Yeah, he only got banned from Twitch. Oh my god, thank you for subscribing, Neon Raider. For a second I thought it was Neon. Like, Neon is following me now, apparently, and Aiden Ross as well. Human Cockroach, Asmon. But yeah, thank you everybody who subscribed. Make sure to stick around. There's gonna be interesting stuff happening on this channel, both on shorts and on not so shorts, wides, whatever you want to call them. If you prefer to watch me that way, you know, just as a YouTube video rather than like, you know, on your phone like that, as well as on Twitch. And look, we might even be, I don't know, we might even add TikTok if we can make that work, right? But we're going to be making moves this year, and I hope you will stick around with us. And we got more exciting stuff. Right now, unfortunately, I have got to yeah, he's the number one. That's correct, Snowset. He's the #1 political streamer on Twitch. I think he might even be #1 on YouTube, right? Yeah, we talk about politics. We talk about also kind of media analysis. So, you know, there's a discussion of, you know, Trump, Kamala, Marco Rubio, whatever's going on in politics, right? And also a discussion of media figures that are informing us, or in some case, misinforming us on politics, whether that be Destiny, Asmongold, Hassan Piker, you know, I've had it gals, breaking points, or yeah, I cover all that stuff. Majority Report, right? So we like to talk about the media space as well. So, you know, if any of that's interesting to you, maybe consider leaving a follow. Also, I got to mention on Twitch, I am so fucking close. Let me check and see how close, right? Oh shit. 10 followers, chat, is all we need on Twitch, and I'll have 5,000. That's not a lot, but it's a good start. And honestly, we should have hit 5,000 way before this. But better late than never, I guess. We're just 10. Yeah, if we get 10 more followers on Twitch, we'll be at 5,000. On YouTube, we're 15 something thousand, and I've got to figure out somebody to hit up for tonight. All right, there we go. With that being said, chat, everybody that supports me on Patreon at the $5 level or above, you get a fancy shout out. Oh, look at that. There's another follow. Nice. You get a fancy shout out at the beginning and end of each stream. Since it's the end of the stream now, I'm going to shout out my, oh, I forgot to do it in the beginning. So shouts out go to user JMB, Brian, Emily French, Big Al of the Cake Mix and the Cake Remix, Direful, Sarah Anderson, Izzy Mandius, Steven Sayers, Animus, Infallible Fowl, Orelse Ellipsis, Nadia Yvette, Choky, Moe Noape, Funky Monkey, Temporal Insanity, Good for Gabby, Jules K, Buffy Geek, and a fancy shout out to Sherry Saphira, Rachel K, Omega Star, and Zera Zera. So that being said, thank you, especially thank you to mods. Mods did a lot of work. Give the mods a hand. I can't do, I should hit the button for applause. It's a lot more impressive if I do it that way, right? But yeah, give the mods a hand, because the mods did a lot of work keeping chat slightly manageable tonight. It was rough in there, especially when we started. I made it a little bit more easy mode for the mods, but they did a lot. All right, they were right there at the front line. So thank the mods. Make sure to like the stream. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate that greatly. When you like the stream, you push my stream out to more and more people. So that's awesome when you do that. I know it's like one thumb, your thumb alone, it might not do much, but if we put all our thumbs together, I swear to God, chat, we can thumb wrestle the algorithm into submission and push my content out there to more people. So with that being said, chat, I gotta learn some more Thai. I'm starting to learn the numbers now, right? I'm studying Thai. I am Sawadee Ka. I'm learning the language. You love banning chuds? Well, I'm glad. I always worry about mods' mental health having to deal with all that shit. So if it's fun for you, all the better. But yeah, I gotta get out of here, and I gotta go to my class, and I'm learning classifier nouns tonight. So yay. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll do the I still owe you the Destiny content, and I still owe you the Alex Jones versus Candace Owens, because you unlocked that today. And yeah, I'll try to bring you that stuff tomorrow. I am so sorry for, again, biting off way more than I could chew and thinking I could cover Trump and Asmongold and Destiny, right? There's just never enough time. So much love. I'm going to get to class. Take care of yourself and each other, and have an awesome day, morning, evening, night, whatever it is in your time zone. And I'll be